What's up, everybody? How are you? My name is Glenn, and this is the What If Project YouTube channel. I have something I want to share with you today, and I don't know how much of a regular thing I'm gonna make this, but if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you've seen, I'm sure, these reels that I've done, these videos I've put up, talking about tarot cards because I've recently gotten into this world, and that's odd because I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ, and aren't Christians supposed to stay away from tarot cards? That's what I was always taught growing up, was that they're evil, they're demonic. It's an entry point for the devil to get into your life and all this stuff. But I came across some people who I admire and I respect, who made passing mention of their use of tarot cards in their own spiritual practice. And being the inquisitive person that I am, that intrigued me. And so I asked them some questions and I did some digging because I like to do my own research and my own digging. And I haven't really thought much about tarot cards since I was in college and I took a spiritual warfare class. I went to an evangelical Bible college and seminary. And in this spiritual warfare class about the devil and the kingdom of darkness, we were told that tarot cards are one of the primary entry points that the devil can get into your life. And so being the good Christian that I am, that I still am, I think, I stayed away from those things and wanted nothing to do with them. But anyway, so I came across these people, I asked them some questions, I started to do my own digging. And I came across some books, but one of the books I came across is a brand new book that's coming out. It is out right now. And she's coming on the podcast soon. Her episode will drop on Halloween. But by Brittany Muller, and it's called The Contemplative Tarot, a Christian Guide to the Cards. And this is a really, really interesting book because she gives the history of tarot cards, what we know about them. And we don't know a lot, but we know they didn't originate in the occult. They were originally a card game in, I believe, France it was. Anyway, so she talks about that. And then she talks about praying with the tarot cards, using them as a means or an avenue with which to connect to Jesus or God or the divine. And then she goes through each and every single card, and she talks about its meaning and how it ties into Scripture. And it's so interesting to me because there's so many parallels that you would never know if all you were told is that they're evil. So this is one of the books that has really been helpful for me. Another book that's been helpful for me is this book called The Guided Tarot, for seamless readings, a beginner's guide to card meanings, spreads, and intuitive exercises. And what this book encourages you to do is to listen to your inner voice, right? When you pull a card, forget about what it means, what the world of tarot says it means. What does it mean to you? Like when you look at the picture, what feelings does it evoke? What stuff comes up inside, and what does that mean for you? So the card might have a particular meaning, but also might have a particular meaning for you. And the thing about the cards that I've learned from both of these books is that they're not meant to tell the future, right? They're not meant to tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. They're not meant to tell you what's going to happen in 5 years from now, or somebody's going to die or whatever. It's not meant for that. They have been used in that way in some instances, but that's not what they're meant for. They're meant to kind of shine a light. They're meant to shine a light on something in your life that maybe you're overlooking, that you're missing, that you're not seeing. And that's what the cards are for. And if you look at it that way, is it really much different than how we use our Bible, right? For those of us that grew up in the church, we had our morning devotions, right? I would open up the Bible and ask God, show me what you want to say to me today. What do you want to speak to me today? What am I missing in my life today that you want to speak into? And when we use the cards that way, alongside of the Bible, I think that really magical, interesting things can happen. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you a couple of cards that I pulled, one yesterday and one today. And the way that these two cards connected to specific things I've been thinking about in my own spiritual journey with Christ, and things that I've been reading in my Bible. It's really, really interesting. And this is not scripted. I didn't really think much about what I was going to say. I just kind of put on the camera and wanted to share this with you, and we'll see where it goes. Maybe it'll become more of a regular thing. I don't know. Maybe this will evolve into something, but who knows? Anyway, so when I pull the cards, right, like I said, I asked God, what do you have to say to me today, whatever. I spread the cards out, and I pull a card. I pull one a day. I pulled one yesterday, pulled one today. So yesterday's card is this card right here. This is Four of Cups. And you can see on this card that there's a guy who's sitting against the tree, and his arms are folded, right? Like he looks like he's just mentally checked out, like he's just done. He's looking at these cups in front of him. He's obviously not satisfied with them, or he doesn't really feel like engaging with them. These cups may be a representation of certain things in his life, right? And he's tired of them. He doesn't want to engage with them, whatever. Then there's a cloud there, which typically I would think would symbolize God or the divine. And there's a hand coming out of there, handing him another cup, right? Here's a fresh cup for you. He's, I don't want that cup either. I don't like that cup. And so what this card says to me is that there's times in our lives, and I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I have, but there's times in our lives where we're just kind of fed up, right? We're just tired. We're kind of like done. We just want to check out. We don't want to do anything, right? Nothing brings us passion. Nothing brings us excitement. Even the gifts that God has given us, we just don't have the energy to engage with them. And so we'd rather just lean on a tree, cross our arms, and just stare. I had one of those days the other day. The other day, I was literally walking around my office, just staring at bookshelves, staring out the window. I had things I wanted to do, things I had to do, the things I love to do, right? Getting to sit and create images for people and podcast episodes and things like that. I had stuff to do, stuff that brings me joy. But in that moment, I felt no joy. And I felt a lot like that guy. Here's all these wonderful cups in front of me. Here's God has given me these wonderful things, these wonderful gifts. And all I really wanted to do was just sit there and stare out the window and be miserable about it all. But here's the thing about the card, right? Because as miserable as that guy is, the hand is not withdrawn, right? God doesn't withdraw his hand. And isn't that the truth? Isn't that what the Bible tells us? That no matter what happens, right? I will be with you always, Jesus said in the end of Matthew's gospel, right? I will be with you always. Go into the world, make disciples. I will be with you always, no matter how you're feeling. If you're feeling like this guy against the tree, absolutely miserable, right? No matter what it is that you're feeling, no matter what it is you're dealing with, no matter how it is that you respond to me, I will always be there. And the gift will always be available to you. The gift of joy, the gift of love, the gift of my grace, whatever it might be. So that was the card I pulled yesterday. Today, I pulled another card. And this card is the Ace of Cups. Now look at this card. Same kind of thing, right? There's a hand coming out of the cloud. But look at the size of that hand compared to this hand. It's much bigger, right? The cup is much cooler looking. And the cup is overflowing into the water below. There's tons of water coming out of this thing. It's just overflowing. The hand of God is glowing. At the top is a dove. Doves typically symbolize peace. And then in the dove's mouth is what looks like a wafer or a cracker with a equidistant cross or a Celtic cross on it. And to me, that symbolizes a connection to God. There's this peaceful connection to God. And what I love about this is that I pulled it the day after the other one. And as miserable as we may be, right? As miserable as we may be, and as much as we're not getting any thrill from our life or from the gifts that God is giving us, God doesn't withdraw his hand. God doesn't withdraw her hand, whatever you want to say. God doesn't withdraw their hand. The universe doesn't take it away because we're having a tough day. But instead, God pursues us all the more, right? So that the cup overflows with abundance. The cup is always available. And the cup just gets bigger so we can go beneath God's hand. If we want to, we can go beneath God's hand. We can take a shower in the grace and the love and the presence that God pours out on us. And the dove, right? The dove with the cracker. This is also reminds me of the Eucharist, right? Communion, which is when Jesus in Matthew's gospel, and I think it's also in Luke, I don't know. It's in Matthew's gospel for sure. When they sit down at the table, right, the night before the crucifixion, the Last Supper, and they share a meal together, Jesus and his disciples. And he gives them the bread and says, "This is my body." And then he gives them the wine and says, "This is my blood. Right, take this." In other words, Jesus is giving us the gift of himself, right? The gift of his presence within us by taking the bread, which represents his body, by taking the wine, which represents his blood, and eating it and drinking it. We're taking God into ourselves in abundance. And I see that in this card, right? With the water coming out is kind of symbolic of like the wine, and the dove with the cracker is symbolic of the body, of the bread. And so the Eucharist is in there. So God is almost giving us the gift of himself, right? When we feel alone and miserable and like nothing is ever going to get better, and I hate everything about my life, and I see these cups in front of me, and they're filled with nothing but horror and terrible things, and the gift that God is handing me doesn't really do anything to awaken anything in me, God just comes all the more. But God gives us the gift of his presence so that he sits with us under that tree so that we are not alone. And that's what these two cards mean for me. And so do you see what I mean? How these cards, they're not evil, right? They're not demonic. They're not going to lead us into the portal of hell. But these cards speak to us the truth, the wonderful truths that we can find in the scriptures that many of us grew up with. And there's parallels between the cards and the Christian scriptures, the Hebrew scriptures, Buddhist scriptures, all different kinds of scriptures. There's so many beautiful parallels. And what that tells me is that these truths and all of these scriptures and these cards, they're not exclusive to these particular places, but these are truths that are wired into the universe. They're wired into all of us. And so I hope that can encourage you today. If you're feeling like this guy sitting under a tree, miserable with your life, God gives you the gift of God's presence today, an overwhelming abundance of God's presence. That's all I got, my friends. Much love to you. Hope that helps. Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.